Is the Logitech Master MX 3S really as good as every YouTuber hypes it to be? This mouse is highly regarded as one of the best productivity accessories out there. I have been using it for the last 3 months and now I'm here to answer all of your questions. From build quality, buttons, customization to, most importantly, is it even worth the price? First and foremost, let's take a look at what you get in the box. I do like how Logitech have this super simple packaging. With the 3S in the box, you also get a USB-A to a USB-C cable and a bolt receiver if you go for the universal version. If you go for the Mac specific version instead, you don't get a Mac receiver, you only have to rely on the Bluetooth connection. The build quality overall here is good for sure. It's mostly made out of plastic, but the part that you are actually touching is made from this soft rubbery material. The ergonomics here are also super good. Your hand just melts onto the shape of this mouse. Both of the main buttons here are made from plastic and the feel on them is really good. The clicks are super silent because, well, it's the 3S and the S in the name stands for silent. When I tried to compare this to any other mice I had at home, the buttons were practically noiseless. So if you like me editing videos really early in the morning, you're not going to wake up any family members with this mouse. But I have to say the feel of them isn't as good as, for example, on my G502. I think this is mostly due to the fact that that mouse is designed for gamers and they actually pay attention to this stuff. But for the regular productivity user, it's not such a big deal. But the thing that the Master 3S does way better than the G502 is the balance on the whole button. When I used to use the 502 on a daily basis, I was used to just clicking on the very top of the mouse in order to have the lightest experience when clicking. Like it would be super easy to click on the top, but super heavy to click on the bottom of the actual button. When I now switch to the Master 3S, it's pretty much balanced throughout the whole surface. But next to these two main buttons is pretty much the highlight of this whole mouse, the scrolling wheel. And I know, how exciting could a scroll wheel really be? Well, this mouse just maxes it out with all of the features that a wheel could have. So first and foremost, it's made out of metal, which makes it feel really nice, especially compared to some of the cheaper plastic wheels. Then you have two modes which you can switch between when scrolling, and you control it by the little button right below the scrolling wheel. You can either use free spin mode or ratchet mode, as Logitech calls them. Free spin is super simple to understand. It basically unlocks the wheel and lets you scroll infinitely. You definitely saw one of those TikToks where they just ramped up the scrollage to the max. And the second mode, ratchet, is basically when you move the wheel, it will clank on to the next step every time you move it. There is also an option with the Logi Plus software which comes with the mice. You can switch on Smart Shift. This is going to basically have both modes activated at the same time. So when you scroll slowly, you will be in ratchet mode, but when you accelerate, you will freely switch into free spin. You can also configure the direction, the scroll speed here, and turn on smooth scrolling, which, to be honest, I didn't really find a difference between having it on and off. And as you by now probably noticed, this isn't the only scrolling wheel on this mouse. It has a second one on the side. Unsurprisingly, you can use it for side scrolling and a bunch of other stuff, because in Logitech software you can configure it to do a lot of different functions that you didn't even think of in the first place. For example, adjusting volume or even adjusting brightness, or you can just configure it to whatever you want. The one recommendation I have for you here is, if you're going to be using this in any kind of editing software, which probably most of you guys who are going to buy this mouse will use it in, then set your sensitivity to 0 or somewhere around that, because it gets kind of wacky and out of control when you have the sensitivity way too high on the timeline. By the way, you can also use this to scroll between tabs in Safari or adjust your brush size in Photoshop. But this function in Photoshop apparently doesn't work with M1 Max, so I couldn't really get it to work. So below this second scroll wheel, we have two more customizable buttons. These could be customized like pretty much any custom button on any mouse. But as always, in Logitech software, you have the predetermined options that Logitech gives you access to, but then you can also configure some of your custom macros that you want to play when you use the mouse. And also, you can configure this on a per app basis. That means if you're in Photoshop using one set of controls and you switch to, for example, Safari, you can use another one there. I, for example, have it set up so that when I'm in in Safari, it's going to act as back and forwards between pages. But when I'm outside of Safari, it's going to act as copy and paste, which is pretty cool to have on a mouse. And to be honest, I actually lied. There is a third button on the side of the mouse, and it's all the way down on the end of the thumb rest. This is your gesture control button, and it can be used for many things, especially in macOS. So again, I for example have it set up so when I click it, it will open Mission Control. When I press it down and move my mouse up and down, it will adjust the volume. And when I press it down and move it to the sides, it will switch between spaces, or desktops if you're a Windows pleb. Also, for all of the gamers or nerds out there who care about all of their stats, like me, the DPI on this mouse is 8000 at max. I don't know who really would use this because, well, 800 is just a classic number, it's good enough. But if you have like a huge free monitor setup, or you just have high resolution monitors, then this would be useful for sure. Also, as for the sensor that they use inside, I couldn't really find the name of it. But on Logitech's website, it says that it uses dark field high precision technology, whatever that means. Even though I don't know the name of the sensor, it's still really impressive, because I haven't really had a mouse that could just glide on glass and still work. I don't know how they do this, but it even works on my Windows. But one issue that I found, which I don't know if it's again just the M1 Max or every other computer in the world, but when I connect it with Bluetooth, it will just start lagging the cursor out for the first 5 minutes. Like after those 5 minutes, it's totally fine, but during that time, it's pretty unbearable. So to fix this, I just used this little ugly solution with the bolt receiver connected to my Mac, which I would really like to get rid of. So if you guys know how to fix this, please let me know. I got a little ahead of myself there. To actually turn the mouse on, you have to switch this little switch on the bottom of the mouse. And right underneath it, you have the quick switch between devices. You can pair up to 3 different devices that are going to be either tablets, phones, or computers. You can either link them directly to these devices or link them to bolt receivers, which I have done. The advantage to linking it to a bolt receiver instead of a device is that you can plug that bolt receiver into pretty much any computer anywhere and it will be ready to go without the need to fight the Bluetooth settings. Another cool feature possible with this mouse and the Logitech keyboards is called Logitech Flow. This is basically their version of Apple's continuity feature. So to explain this quickly, when you have a Mac and an iPad, you can basically go with your mouse through the screens and move files around. You can do this exact same thing with 2 different computers if you have your Logitech accessories connected to them. The only difference here is that it also works with Windows, and you can even share files from macOS over to Windows. The battery inside this thing is actually quite small, at 500 mAh. It will last you all the way up to 70 days, which Logitech claims, and I can reassure you that it's probably going to even last longer than that, since I have lastly charged it about a month ago and I'm still sitting at 60%. Also, with the battery being quite small, you can fast charge it to 3 hours of usage in just 1 minute of having it plugged in. So with all of these features and details out of the way, let's get back to the main question that we asked at the beginning. Is it actually worth it for the price? By the way, it costs $100. So to be honest, when considering the build quality, the customization, all of the nifty features it has, I think it's definitely worth the investment. I know that for most of you guys, you're rather going to go for a gamer mouse because it just looks cooler. But if you want the ultimate productivity accessory, which this mouse really is, then it's going to be worth it for you, and it's of course going to last you a long time. So I hope this helps, and I will see you in the next one.